we are now about to start the session. Thank you so much. Day 2. Good morning, students. Thank you so much for all the technical officers today that are joining from HQ from Rome. I know that it's afternoon in Malaysia and other parts in Asia, so maybe this is the reason why today we have less students, but I will follow up directly with them. I will give the floor to Professor Firdaus to open the session today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Marilyn. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the second session of the FAO Technical Lecture Series 2026. On behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the ASEAN University Network for Agriculture and Food Security, AUN-AFS, the ASEAN University Network, AUN, and University Putra Malaysia, it is my pleasure to welcome all participants joining today. We are delighted to have participants from universities, research institutions, government agencies, development organizations, and the private sector across ASEAN and beyond. Before we begin, allow me to share a few housekeeping announcements. Today's webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available after the session, and the access link will be shared in the Zoom chat box. Should you miss any part of today's lecture or wish to revisit the discussion, we encourage you to save the link for future references. Please keep your microphones muted throughout the session to ensure the best audio quality for everyone. And we encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the Zoom using the Zoom Q&A function. Following the presentations, we will have a moderated question and answer session where we will address as many questions as time allows. Thank you once again for joining us. So, ladies and gentlemen, a short introduction to today's lecture. Water scarcity, land degradation, and declining soil health are among the most pressing challenges affecting global agriculture today. As climate change continues to intensify, ensuring the sustainable management of land, soil, and water resources has becoming increasingly important for achieving resilient and sustainable agri-food system. Today's lecture will introduce participants to the Global Framework on Water Scarcity in Agriculture, WASAG, and highlight practical experiences from FAO in promoting integrated land, soil, and water management. This session will also explore the important connections between water, soil health, crop productivity, and human nutrition. We are honored to be joined today by three distinguished experts from FAO, each bringing unique expertise and extensive international experience in these fields. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our first speaker today. So, our first speaker is Mr. Ruhiza Jean Boroto, Senior Land and Water Officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Since 2017, Mr. Boroto has led the development of the Global Framework on Water Scarcity in Agriculture, a flagship international partnership that brings together governments, development partners, research institutions, and practitioners to improve agricultural water management under conditions of increasing water scarcity. With a professional background in water engineering, he has worked extensively across Africa and internationally, providing technical leadership on agricultural water management, climate change adaptation, land use, soil conservation, and sustainable agriculture development. His extensive experience in both policy and field implementation provides valuable insights into addressing one of agriculture's most critical challenges. Without further ado, the virtual floor is yours, Mr. Boroto. You have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen, and I hope you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to deliver this lecture. The topic is on sustainable land, soil, water resource, and water resource management. We will focus on BE3. BE3 stands for biodiversity and ecosystem services for food and agriculture. And as mentioned, also on WASAG, the partnership managed by the Land and Water Division of FAO. Let me change my screen. So after this welcome, I'll make this presentation. I suggest we skip my questions so that we can go straight to the next presentation because we started late. And then the third one, and then we have just one discussion at the end. So FAO strategic framework has 4 betas. We call them beta nutrition, beta production, beta environment, and beta life. And they all contribute to natural resource management, which is key to achieving Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So in order to achieve these 4 betas, you cannot do anything if you exclude land and water and soils. And these are, in fact, the entry points for developing or managing agri-food systems, and therefore they are at the core of the 4 betas of the FAO strategic framework. Then within our Land and Water Division, we submitted to FAO management a conceptual framework for integrated land and water management, where integrated being the keyword there. The vision is land, soil, and water resources are conserved, restored, and sustainably used to ensure future food and water security and ecosystem services. We have a mission, we have outcomes, we have the means, and then we serve several program priority areas. In fact, each one of the 4 betas of the FAO strategic framework have a couple of program priority areas. Sometimes some have got 4, some have got 5. I think in total there are 20. And so in our division, we serve a number of them, I think 9 of them. So our work focuses on good governance of land, soil, and water resource management at global and at the country level. At global level, we do mostly normative work, developing guidelines, policy. Then we have partnerships such as the Global Soil Partnership, WASAG, and also we have a dialogue that we host every year. At country level, we support development of policy, legislation, investments, integrated water resource management, addressing critical issues of land degradation, biodiversity loss, drought, floods, climate change, and addressing soil and water quality and pollution from agriculture. We also support conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of natural resources through integrated programs. And I'm not going to go through all of them. Then we support adaptation to and mitigation to climate change through various interventions, climate smart agriculture, red soil program. I've put in yellow saran agriculture because my colleague Maria is going to speak about it, integrated drought and flood management, and so forth. We have value-added impact via that support the program priority areas of our strategic framework. I was supposed to highlight the last one, awesome, addressing water scarcity for agriculture and environment, because this is what my colleague Felistas will also speak about. Then on integrated land and water and soil solutions, we develop coherent policies and practices and develop a systematic approach that links the human environment and rural and urban interlinkages. So examples include the One Health program, integrated water resource and inland aquatic ecosystems, blue transformation and small island developing state, that is SEEDS, and then urban and rural linkages. As you know that the population in cities is growing with the migration from rural areas to urban areas, and it's very important to make sure that this happens in a coherent manner. Then data is very critical. And Aquastat, if you go on the internet, Aquastat is the world's largest database on agriculture water management information at country level. So if you are doing your PhD or doing your research, if you need information on data, on agriculture, water management, surface, irrigated surface area, lands, dams and so forth. Aquastat is the place to go. And every year, countries are requested to submit updates on their data. Then other means of delivery include partnerships. I mentioned GSP. I mentioned WASAG. I'll speak about WASAG now. We work with partners, JF Green Climate Fund, South-South Triangular Cooperation. We also have various UN coalition and initiatives, as you can see there on the right side of the screen. So if we speak about WASAG, the world population is increasing, and so is demand for water increasing. So, but the available water resources is not increasing. If anything, it's being subjected to climate change. And agriculture is responsible for 72% of freshwater withdrawals, meaning that we need to focus on agriculture in order to release the pressure for other sectors. So for this to happen, FAO decided to convene, to establish this partnership, WASAG. And lately, so this has been established since 2016 at the COP22 in Marrakesh, Morocco. It has now evolved into not formal, but less informal than when it began. So you can see on the right-hand side, we've got the plenary assembly. In fact, our first plenary assembly will take place on the 24th of July this year. We have a steering committee, which is made of member countries representing the 7 FAO regions that make FAO, including Asia Pacific. And then we've got partners from those member nations, as well as other categories, including UN agencies, research organizations, universities, civil society, NGOs, and private sector organizations, including foundations. And then to the left, we have got, from the bottom, we've got various working groups and task forces. We have a technical advisory committee, and which is really the technical arm of WASAG, whereas the steering committee is the strategy, policy and strategy arm. And whereas we have a plenary assembly here in Rome, bringing mostly member countries together, the International Forum is a technical meeting where we share knowledge, projects in the field. The next forum is planned for November 2026 this year in Morocco. So we have a strategy that was launched, that is being launched actually now. I'm now looking at the bottom left corner of my screen, which we are busy implementing. It has 4 pillars: one on policy, the second one on research and innovation, the third one on capacity development, and the fourth one on really action on the ground. So one of the delivery mechanisms is our working groups. We've got 6 of them: migration, drought preparedness, nutrition, sustainable agriculture, water use, silent agriculture, and financing mechanism, which is cross-cutting. Throughout our work, we try to address gender balance, they involve the youth, awareness raising, and good governance. Now, in this strategy that I've just shown you, we are now developing its work plan. Actually, we are implementing it. And just as an example of what we are doing now, we've just launched a call asking our partners to submit solutions addressing water scarcity in agriculture. So first, targeting those working groups, as you can see to the left, sorry. And then we now have task forces on capacity building, violent agriculture, and so forth. And any partner who feels that they have a solution that addresses water scarcity in agriculture is invited to submit that solution. We have an assessment criteria. Once these solutions are received, we will then post them after evaluation on a platform where they can be accessible to any partner, any country, any community that is in need. As I draw to the end of my presentation, I want to highlight that my colleagues Maria and Felistas will speak about saline agriculture and soils, and then Felistas will speak about indigenous drought-resilient crops. So the knowledge gaps are that land, soil, and water remain subjected to various pressures, which require continuous assessment. What solutions can be developed and improved? I think there are so many solutions that we are calling for, as I just illustrated. Translating the data into knowledge is a challenge. And then there are several policy gaps that are being highlighted. I think Felistas will illustrate one, because when new solutions come, then you need to fund the supportive policies to make sure that they are appropriately upscaled. Getaway message or the takeaway messages. The logo or the motto of our division is that sustainable land, soils, and water resource management is essential to our past, present, and future. In the context of the work that we do, I mentioned integration is keyword. So collaboration is in building resilient agri-food system is an imperative for better results and greater impact. No more working in silos, no more working in competition. You cannot succeed if you work like that. Water scarcity, yes, it is a challenge, but we discover also that it uncovers a lot of opportunity. In whatever we do, a people, including women and youth, centered approach is critical for the sustainability of our actions. So if you need more information, just enter those two websites or just WASAG or that email address, and then you can get more information. I thank you. We'll discuss later.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Boroto, for the very insightful overview of what WASAG is and all the good work that is being carried out in FAO. As suggested by Mr. Boroto earlier, we will pull all the questions towards the end of the lecture after the third speaker has given her presentation. So without further ado, we'd like to invite the second speaker, Dr. Maria Konyushkova, who is an international consultant on soil salinity at FAO. Dr. Konyushkova is an internationally recognized for her work on soil salinity and has nearly 2 decades of research and field experience across arid and salt-affected regions in Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. She currently leads FAO's work on soil salinity under the Global Soil Partnership and has made significant contributions to international soil science through research, technical guidance, and capacity building. Her expertise is particularly valuable as countries seek innovative approaches to managing saline soils and maintaining agricultural productivity under changing climatic conditions. Without further ado, Dr. Konyushkova, the virtual floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. And yes, let me first open my presentation. During this session, I will talk mostly about soils and why salinity is important, and why now it is a very growing issue and threat that we have to find a way how to address and how to treat. And I will talk also about the approaches of saline agriculture and managing such soils. The lecture will be arranged around 3 main topics. First, I will give an introduction about what is soil salinity and sodicity. On the second part, I will talk about pathways to sustainable management of such soils. And in the third part, I will quickly describe the main areas of work and activities that we implement on these types of soils. So, defining saline and sodic soils, we have to distinguish between 2 different types, which actually, let's say, sometimes there is a confusion when people and let's say farmers work with such soils, because indeed they are somehow originate from salinity, but the results and the ways how to manage them are very, very different indeed. So saline soils are the ones that have elevated concentrations of highly soluble salts in the root zone, and we have some metrics to measure it. So either it's the electrical conductivity of soil water extract, or there are other approaches such as the measurement of total soluble salts in soil solution, or extracting different cations and anions and then summing them up. So in this case, in the latter case, you can also distinguish what is the chemistry of salinity that you have in your soils. So, and in this case, you have the increased osmotic effect. Then in the another slide, in the next slide, I will explain why it's so important for water availability in soils. And in case of sodic soils, the most important effect that we have is mostly the physical condition of soil. So in this case, we have, in case of sodic soils, we have the high levels of adsorbed sodium, which is adsorbed to soil particles. And this is actually what is somehow difficult to measure. Still, there are some chemical approaches how to measure it, but actually still the diagnosis of such soils is mostly quite comprehensive and complicated, and you have to use different metrics to really evaluate such soils. But visually, they are usually quite easily diagnosed, because you can have, and in other slides I will show some photos, you will have cracked surface. Then actually they behave very differently from other soils when they react with, let's say, when we have irrigation and drying. So during this drying and wetting conditions, you will see different, that these soils react very differently. And in case of these soils, we have the reduced water permeability, soil aeration, and quite the formation of hard pan layers on the surface. So, and explaining why the salinity is so important, actually, it's not only the effect of salinity per se. So, because the salt cations and anions, majority of them are not toxic to plants. The effect that from which plants mostly suffer is that the water becomes, even if there is much water in soil, still the water becomes unavailable to plants. So I would say somehow you can also compare with yourself, because when you try to drink salt water, it doesn't. So still you will feel thirsty, and the same for the plants. So they only very few plants that can drink, let's say, such type of water. And here you can see how water use decreases with the different levels of salinity. So on the top you see when we have this slight salinity, and on the bottom when we have a very strong salinity. Then you see that when the soil is drying, how few. So first of all, yes, indeed, we have the reduction of water use, but even with different levels of salinity, you can see how much is the effect of this. So it's even more than the presence of water itself in the soil solution. So what are the main factors of soil salinization and acidification? So we distinguish between primary factors, you can see them on the left side, and the secondary factors, the so-called human-induced factors. And actually we have majority of the salt-affected soils that we have worldwide. They are caused by the primary factors of salinization. So those are salt-bearing rocks, volcanic activity, seawater intrusion, and aeolian inputs. And in case of secondary salinization, but that's why we actually focus on these soils also in FAO, because the soil and water management is very important to mitigate and also to adapt to such environments, because if you pump and over pump in the arid environments and also in the coastal regions, then you will have the saline water coming up to the soil. And also when you irrigate with a poor quality water, also you can cause the salinization of your soils. Then inadequate drainage is a key also for managing such soils. And there are many cases when deforestation, especially it was described for Australia, when deforestation caused the dryland salinization, resulting in secondary salinization of 2 million hectares of agricultural lands. And overuse of fertilizers, because in the end, all the fertilizers are soluble salts somehow. So it's they're compounds which are easily soluble in soil. And in case we have quite the conditions which lead to the accumulation of these components and compounds on the surface of the soil, then we can indeed find the secondary salinization in such conditions. So, and here are some photos of saline soils. Yeah, if we have the extreme cases of soil salinity, we can observe it very easily in the field, having the salt crust, white salt crust on the surface. But I would like to make a note that in majority of the cases, we cannot observe it because if we have irrigation, if we have moderate slight levels of salinity, or after the rainfall, all of these salt crust, they will be diluted and they will be hidden inside the root zone of the soil, which still does affect the crop, the crop and the roots of the crops. And here are some illustrations of sodic soils. You can see that in this case we have quite specific surface after the rain or rain conditions or irrigation, and when they start to dry, they form this cracked surface on the top. Sorry. So when we talk about the different levels of salinity, so we distinguish, so here in blue, you can see the borders, the thresholds of the different levels of soil salinity. So no salinity when we have this is the electrical conductivity of soil water extract from 0 to 2. In some cases, it's to 0 to 4. Depending on the classification system used in the countries, because it also dependent in different countries. And from 2 to 4, we have slight salinity. So in any case, the threshold of 4 decisiemens per meter is considered more or less the threshold to distinguish between non-saline and saline soils. Then moderate salinity is from 4 to 8 decisiemens per meter. Strong salinity is from 8 to 16, and the very strong salinity from over 16 decisiemens per meter. And if we see how it influences and which groups of crops and plants can tolerate these different levels of soil salinity, so we can see we can distinguish between 3 groups of crops which are glycophytes. So they tolerate the levels up to 0.5% of salt in the soil. So they can grow in non-salty, slightly saline and moderately saline soils. Another group, the next group, is salt-tolerant crops. So they can tolerate from 0.5% to about around 1%, or 1.2% of salt in the soil. And then we have a specific group of crops that even they're named halophytes, and Felistas will talk more about these types of crops. There are around 600 species worldwide that can grow in such conditions, and they even produce more. So under moderate levels of salinity, they can. This is their name, halophytes, which means that they love salts. So their production increases when the salinity grows, but then still at some level, when the salinity becomes too high, they cannot grow. So, and there is euhalophytes. These are crops that can grow in seawater salinity. So, and you can find these types of plants in the coastal regions. And then, if we have a global overview of the distribution of the salt-affected soils in the world, we can see the top 10 countries in this slide. And among the Asian countries, the top countries are Kazakhstan, Iran, Sudan, Iran, Afghanistan, and China. But I would like here to know that actually, for many countries which have an extended coastal area, so the total area of salt-affected soils can be quite low comparing to the big countries, but still their majority of the cropland can be concentrated, and the effect of salinity can be quite substantial in these areas. And here on this table, we can see the relative potential yield losses. So we made this assessment for at the global level, and in the global status of salt-affected soils, which is available through this link below. So you can also access this report and see what are the potential yield losses. It's the global assessment for your country. So, but still we are encouraging the countries to perform the more precise assessment for their countries. So if we want to understand how to address this salinity in soils, what to do, then there are two strategic pathways. So either we mitigate, so we try to reduce the salinity of the topsoil, or there is also another way, which is now, let's say, growing more and more, and there are many so the areas where we still somehow try to live with salinity, so we don't try to reduce it, but we try to find the ways how to adapt to it. And sustainable management, so it's not one size fits all model, because indeed we have to combine different physical, biological, and chemical measures to manage such soils. So in the next few slides, I will provide some examples of these management strategies. Mulching and subsoil interlayers. So in case of mulching, we try to, when we add different mulches to the surface, we try to avoid the evaporation, because in the arid conditions, evaporation is the main factor which leads to the excessive accumulation of salt on the surface. And if you add the straw mulching on the top, or you embed the remnants of crops into the soil, it will help to reduce the evaporation, thus leading to the reduced salinity of the top layer. Then you can add the interlayers. So and this will help to stop the flow of the saline water from bottom layers to the top layers. Then leaching and drainage systems. So actually, these were the main approaches in the past to manage this soil. So it's mostly for this case you need to perform very large-scale engineering constructions to manage. And for smallholder farmers, it's usually not a very feasible method. So in this case, for farmers to improve the leaching and drainage, they actually need to form the associations to organize it. So at the small scale, it's not very easy to perform. Then different subsurface pipe drainage systems. So again, it's usually quite costly, and it depends on the financial capacities of the farmers. Then chemical soil amelioration is very important. So different calcium containing amendments, they are very important for sodic soils, about which I talked before. So these soils are managed very differently. So agroforestry and biodrainage are both very helpful for both types of soils. And in case of saline agriculture and halophytes, so this is the way how we can transition from, let's say, resource-heavy soil reclamation to coexisting with salinity. So in this case, we can grow salt-tolerant cultivars. Then we can use the halophyte domestication, because there are many plants in saline environments which are adapted to grow in such conditions. And these saline agriculture approaches, that they are economically, let's say, more feasible. The only maybe a gap that we observe now is that still this way of agriculture should be promoted. And one more evolving approach is the using of microbiological and the microbiological approaches and seed priming. So you use the bioinoculants. These are specific, the microbes that help crops to grow, and then priming and bioremediation. And so, and to close this, to finish with this. With my lecture, I would briefly tell you about the activities that we have on salt-affected soils. So we have webinars which are available online. So in the link below, you can see, you can find these webinars where we address the crop nutrition in salt-affected soils, the approaches to assessing, monitoring soil salinity and sodicity, and this modeling. Then the lecture on e-halof, so on those halophytes, then the cultivation in different conditions. So the Global Soil Doctors Program is the program that helps farmers. It's a farmer-to-farmer training that helps farmers to manage such soils. And also I encourage you to go and read this Farmers Guidelines on Soil and Water Management in Salt-Affected Soils and Global Status of Salt-Affected Soils, which are the latest key FAO publications on sustainable saline agriculture. Thank you so much, and in case of questions, we can discuss it in the end of our session. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Maria Konyushkova, for a very insightful explanation on what soil salinity and sodicity is, and all the good work that is being carried out and all the solutions that are out there to solve these two pressing issues on soil. So again, we encourage all participants to submit your question through the Q&A function in the Zoom function here. And let's move on to our third speaker. So our third speaker for today is Ms. Felistas Mugariri. She's a water, crops and nutrition analyst at FAO. Ms. Mugariri's work focuses on the important relationship between water management, agriculture and nutrition, and particularly within the context of climate change. She has contributed significantly to FAO's work in promoting indigenous drought-resilient and nutrient-rich crops capable of improving both food security and nutrition in water-scarce environment. Her interdisciplinary perspective highlights how sustainable natural resource management ultimately contributes to healthier communities and more resilient food system. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Ms. Felistas Mugariri.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me try to share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, good afternoon. I'm going to take you through the topic integrating opportunity crops into sustainable land and water management. Okay. Are my slides moving? No?
No.
Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. For the learning objectives, we hope that by the end of this lecture, you'll be able to understand the concept of opportunity crops and their role in promoting agricultural biodiversity and contribute to sustainable land, soil, and water management. And that you'll become familiar with some of FAO initiatives, for example, the Addressing Water Scarcity in Agriculture and Environment, or some that I am going to speak about as our main case study. And hopefully you'll be able to identify opportunities and challenges for research innovation and explore how opportunity crops contribute to transforming sustainable agriculture transformation. So as a fact, I hope, did you know that approximately 70 to 72% of global freshwater withdrawals are from agriculture? So you can read more about this in a solar report by FAO from 2025. And so this is just to tell you how much water scarcity in agriculture is a problem. So on top of water scarcity in agriculture, we also have food insecurity and malnutrition, which remain major global challenges that we are currently facing. And then we have climate change, we have land degradation, we have biodiversity loss, which are also threatening agricultural productivity. So we have what we call opportunity crops, which offer a sustainable solution to all these challenges. So opportunity crops, these are mainly indigenous crops that are mainly grown by smallholder farmers, which have a potential to solve nutritional challenges, to enhance biodiversity, and they usually thrive in harsh conditions, including water scarce conditions. So from you're also going to see that even in our initiative Awesome, we have youths and women playing a very pivotal role in promoting these crops. So Awesome, which I alluded to as addressing water scarcity in agriculture and environment previously, we are currently implementing it in Malawi in 3 districts. So the objectives of this initiative is to promote the adoption of drought-resilient, nutritious, and biodiversity-enhancing crops through the adoption of agronomic practices that improve water use efficiency, soil health, and ecosystem services. And then our second objective is to strengthen value chains of these opportunity crops from farm to fork to maximize the social economic benefits by ensuring that their production, transformation, commercialization, and consumption of these crops. And we're going to see it as we move on with our case study. So we have more than 100 youths and women that are participating or that participated in this project. And in Malawi, it focused on sorghum and cowpeas. So what we did is we came up with a compendium of drought-resilient, nutritious crops, which is currently existing as an Excel file. I'll share with you the QR code, and then you can take a look at that. So from that list, we had consultation workshops with countries. So initially we started with 4 countries, Malawi, Cape Verde, South Sudan, and Morocco. So we had consultation meetings with these countries, and they concluded that they are mostly interested in millets and vineyard. And then further to that, we had more consultations with Cabo Verde and Malawi, and there was more interest in Malawi. Hence, we had our piloting in Malawi. So Malawi has got a national gene bank where they are conserving the seeds of different varieties of different opportunity crops. So Malawi opted to focus on sorghum and cowpeas in this pilot. So we looked at 24 cowpea varieties and 30 sorghum varieties. So what we did is, from these varieties that are stored in the National Gene Bank, we went to the communities, and through the participatory variety selection process, the communities selected the varieties that they were interested in, looking at different criteria like the time it takes for the crop to mature, the size of the seeds, the size of the leaves, because if you look at cowpeas, also the leaves are also consumed, the time it takes to cook different varieties. So that's how they came up with the varieties that were then included into in this initiative. So we did drought screening, where we tested to what extent the different varieties of sorghum and cowpeas can withstand water stress, and see the yield that they produce under different water stress conditions. We'd also looked at their phenotypic characterization when they're exposed to water stress conditions. Does the size of the leaves change? The size of the seeds, the time to maturity, and things like that. And then after that, we did a nutrition profiling, where we tested to see the nutritional content of the particular varieties that we were looking at. So before we did all this, we had capacity building of 20 government officials to go through with them the research protocols and how they were going to do the project. And then with the communities, we did nutrition education and also looking at economic benefits. So together with farmers, we trained them on the nutrition benefits of these crops. We also did value addition, where they came up with different recipes, different products, using cowpeas and variety and sorghum varieties. And then we're also teaching them about the economic benefits, in which ways they can earn income and improve their livelihoods by growing these crops. So after all this, the last stage of the initiative is to select the superior varieties. So I'm going to present to you the results of the project, and then which of the varieties we ended up selecting as the superior varieties, which are then going to go through a process within the Ministry of Agriculture in Malawi, where they register those varieties, and then they can be officially released to the farmers. So for the nutritional component, if you look at cowpeas, we saw that generally, as expected, they have a higher nutritional content as compared to other pulses, for example, beans, that is usually common. But if you look at some micronutrients, which are usually problematic in most low-income settings, for example, iron, zinc. There's a lot of iron and zinc and calcium deficiencies in settings like Malawi. We see that we have a variety, ACC 5570, which has got 34.5 milligrams per 100 grams of iron, as compared to 5.9 milligrams per 100 grams that is found in varieties that are in food composition tables of Malawi. So most countries have got what we call food composition tables, where they have different kinds of foods that are listed in their nutritional content. So you can see the difference that it has got. These varieties that we looked at in this initiative, they actually have 5 times more iron, which confirms that we have some varieties that are not being promoted, that are neglected, that are forgotten, but they actually have more nutritional benefits as compared to the conventional varieties that the farmers are currently utilizing. It's true for potassium, for zinc, for calcium, and magnesium. So below the top picture is showing the farmers that were involved in the value addition trainings and nutrition trainings. And as you can see, it involved both men and women. It's not just women who are involved in the nourishing of families, but we also tried to involve men, as they are also usually the decision makers within a household. And then the 3 bottom pictures show the different products that they tried to come up with using cowpeas, for example, the cowpea strips, and locally they call it called chola. And then there's the cowpea wheat flour balls that they also came up with. So they came up with different recipes. They're very interesting that they came up with from using these crops. And then if we look at drought screening, where we tested the performance of different varieties exposed to water stress conditions, we can see that most varieties performed better. So from this graph, we can see the yield vis-a-vis the different varieties of sorghum. And then the yellow line is the national average of sorghum yield according to FAO Stat. So it's around 1,056 kilograms per hectare. And we can see that we have around 5 varieties that have that performed better compared to the national average. So compared to the current varieties that the farmers are using, we even have varieties that are conserved within a gene bank that are capable of producing more yield even under water stress conditions. And then if we look at drought screening of cowpeas, because for cowpeas, you see, we looked at it in 3 different districts, and the blue horizontal line is the national average of cowpea. That's the national average yield of cowpeas according to FAO Stat. And you can see that most of the varieties that we looked at across the 3 districts produce more yield, far more yield, like 7 times more the yield than the variety that the farmers are currently growing. So these results are showing, confirming that these underutilized crops, which we also call opportunity crops, have got more potential to give more yield, even when they're subjected to water stress. Even in water scarce conditions, we can still rely on them for more yield. And we can see that they're also performing better in terms of nutrition. So we can rely on them for food security and nutrition when faced with drought. So in terms of knowledge gaps, we still need to know more about on how opportunity crops improve soil. So we did not look into that in this project, but we still need to know how they can improve the soil, and also vice versa, how this in which soils they thrive better and how they also benefit the soil. For example, we know that legumes have got a benefit to the soil. And we still need to know the performance of other opportunity crops. There is a wide range. In our database, we have more than 100 opportunity crops that we documented. So there is still room to know more about other opportunity crops. And then in terms of data challenges, we still have lack of centralized and open access databases that are looking across agronomic practices, nutrition, and environmental and socioeconomic information. And we still have limited data on non-nutrients and anti-nutritional factors. So we just have information on the nutrients that have benefits to our health, but also within crops, there are what we call anti-nutritional factors, which are actually acting in an opposite direction. For example, with tannins, they can hold on to these nutrients and then they are not released to our bodies. So we still have limited data on that. And then in terms of innovation opportunities, there's still room to use, digital soil mapping, remote sensing, or GIS to identify the most suitable areas or the most suitable soils in which we can grow these opportunity crops for maximum benefits. And then there's room to strengthen our communities with seed banks. We saw that Malawi has got a national gene bank, which is conserving these kind of seeds. So we can even go further to local level and have community seed banks and decentralized seed multiplication. And then for policy questions, I think we need to see how can these crops be better integrated in national agriculture, nutrition, biodiversity, and water management strategies. Currently, we have strategies that are in silos, but there is room. Opportunity crops have got the potential to bring all these strategies together and integrate them and see the benefits of integrating this. And then we need to know what policy instruments are most effective in encouraging farmers to cultivate opportunity crops. For example, we know that in most sub-Saharan African countries, crops like maize are highly subsidized. So farmers are more inclined to growing maize because there are lots of subsidies around that. But we also need to look at what happens if we also subsidize these crops that we have seen that they actually have greater opportunities and to farmers when faced with drought. What happens if we also introduce subsidies to also encourage and incentivize farmers to adopt the production of these crops? So for key takeaway messages, we see that opportunity crops are part of a solution to food security, malnutrition, climate change, and water scarcity all in one. We also see that agriculture biodiversity is essential for healthy soils, efficient water use, resilient ecosystems, and sustainable agri-food systems. And then to scale opportunity crops, we require investment in research, like we did here. We need investment in seed systems, data supportive policies, and inclusive markets. And then partnerships and innovations are key to unlocking the full potential of opportunity crops for people, the planet, and the future generation. And lastly, I'll invite you to take a look at our compendium on drought-resilient nutritious crops. It's still an Excel file, but we're currently writing a publication, which we hope to finalize by the end of this year. And for more information on Awesome, there's still more information. We are currently in the final phases of our project. So you can take a look at our website, and there is more to come. We have a video that showcases the project from start to finish. We have some products that we are going to be posting on our website. So keep an eye on our website. And if you have any questions and you should like to know more about this initiative, feel free to write us on water-scarcity@fao.org. Thank you. I give it back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mugariri, for sharing on opportunity crops and what has been done in Malawi. Thank you very much to all our distinguished speakers for such an insightful and informative presentation. We have a few questions in our Q&A box, two which has been answered by Mr. Boroto, but allow me to read them. You are all welcome to open up the Q&A box to read on the answer that has been provided by Mr. Boroto, or in fact, all have been answered by Mr. Boroto. So the first question is by Jewel Rana on the smallholders farmers in Bangladesh, on financial and technological barriers, and what are the financing mechanism or policy models that would be most effective for resource poor farmers like country in Bangladesh. And you can read up on the answer there that has been provided by Mr. Boroto. And we have two questions from Sumin Lee. The first question is on opportunity crops, the definition of opportunity crops, and which has been answered by Mr. Boroto. You're all welcome to read on there. And also the second question by Sumin Lee is on databases and country level reports by FAO, and if there's a prioritization on opportunity crops. And yes, Mr. Boroto has highlighted that the last slide that was presented by Ms. Mugariri on the QR codes that she presented on her last slide. You are all welcome to download all the publications that have been published by the FAO. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Is there any more questions that you'd like to pose on the Q&A box?
They can also turn on the microphone because
Yes,
they are allowed to speak.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in giving oral questions to any of the panelists, please, you are more welcome to do so, to turn on your mics and post your questions. Do you have any more questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, if we don't have any questions from the floor, I would like to take this opportunity before we wrap up our session today to give a chance to each of our speakers if they can have if they can provide us with one brief piece of advice for young researchers that are interested in sustainable land, soil, and water management. So can we start with Mr. Boroto, if you have any final words or any advice for the young researchers out there?
Yes, I will tell my own story. So I come from a village where, people want to be doctors, lawyers, economists, and so forth. But since I've started working in water resources, a number of youngsters, actually parents from children from my village, tell their kids, but you see, Mr. Boroto, he did water. You should also go and do water. And so I think the message there is you have to create your opportunities. You have to create your opportunities because, as we said, there's competition for water, there's competition for soils, there's competition for land, there is food scarcity. There are all kind of threats on natural resources. So be part of the solution. And if you're part of the solution, then you definitely be able to make a living. And the solution comes through research. Make sure that your research is connected to reality on the ground. I think Maria's presentation was very clear. Felistas' presentation was very clear. Don't stay in the clouds. Develop your tools, but always do a reality check on the ground and make sure that you involve as far as possible some beneficiaries who can prove that your research is relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boroto, for the very insightful advice to our young researchers. Next, Dr. Konyushkova, if you have any advice for the young researchers working on soil and water management.
Yeah. So I would say regarding this topic that I described regarding salinity, so all the predictions, all the modeling, regardless of the scenario, shows that this threat will continue growing because we will have this water scarcity growing, freshwater scarcity growing, and more and more the farmers will be somehow forced to use the saline water for their agriculture. So, and indeed, I would say all the approaches that were very popular in the past century, they are somehow being reconsidered, so being changed. And we need many students, we need researchers who will work on these growing and evolving approaches, where we have to change our let's say, our understanding of that salinity is somehow a threat. Salinity would become the part of our life. And with this mindset, so the new researchers, the students, and all the people who would come to the farmers, that should bring the solutions, what to do in this changing environment. And so I would say there is a great huge area for development, for research, for the studies, and also it's a huge area to work with the farmers. And so I really encourage you, yes, if you are interested in this topic, there are many perspectives ahead. So,
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Konyushkova. Indeed, salinity is something that is here to stay, and we have to keep on doing more research to adapt to the changes. And finally, Ms. Mugariri, any final words for you for our young researchers and future scientists in the session today?
Thank you. I think from a youth to youth, I would say dare to take up the space and try to come up with solutions that are bringing different players into one room. Try to look at it from an integrated perspective, from a holistic approach, and tie the knots, right? I would say currently we do have information, we do have lots of research that has been done, but there are single strands hanging in the air. But try to tie the knots, try to bring the different players on the table. For example, I'm a nutritionist, but I am working with water specialists, with soil specialists, and I feel like nutrition is at the center where I bring different players to the table. So try to come up with those solutions that are integrated and that have a stronger benefit to the beneficiary, who is the farmer or the smallholder farmers or the youths, at the lower level. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the final words, Ms. Mugariri. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude today's lecture, I would like to once again express our sincere appreciation to our distinguished speakers for sharing their knowledge and valuable experiences with us today. We hope that you have a very fruitful discussion with our speakers. And for those who are present today, we encourage you to join us again tomorrow, same time. And tomorrow's topic will be on Indigenous Peoples' Food and Knowledge System, FPIC, and considerations for research and nutrition. And we look forward to welcoming you once again tomorrow. And on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the ASEAN University Network for Agriculture and Food Security, the ASEAN University Network, and University Putra Malaysia, thank you for joining us today. We wish you a pleasant afternoon or the rest of your day for those of you who are still early in the morning, and look forward to seeing you at our next session. Stay safe and goodbye.